and this is my final project presentation for Comp 435, based on the 2012 LinkedIn data breach hack. A brief introduction. On June 5th, 2012, 6.5 million LinkedIn user passwords were stolen. The hack, which was the root of many later leaks, was charged to Yevgeny Nikulin, who was sentenced to 88 months in prison. Over the past 9 years since the attack, a series of other leaks have been attributed to this attack. So the motivation. Why should we study this attack, and why is it significant? The attack is one of the largest modern data breaches of user information. It brought about sweeping changes in how many large companies store their user information, as well as how they authenticate that user information. It showed that by obtaining the password of just one employee, an adversary can completely compromise the inadequately encrypted data of an entire corporation with millions of users. The attack also had a rippling effect of information. While it was originally thought that just 6.5 million accounts were compromised, after a few years it became clear that upwards of 100 million accounts were leaked. As for the attackers, their primary motivation for the attack appears to be profit. The attackers tried to sell the leaked information almost immediately afterwards. The attackers also tried to sell information from a Dropbox hack and a FormSpring hack they'd done earlier that year. Throughout the trial and conviction, no political motives were brought up, though a potential social motive of the hackers attempting to gain fame or renown was discussed briefly. So some quick background material on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a professional social media platform designed to connect those seeking jobs with companies and to keep an online track of careers. Its accounts have a great deal of professional information and networks about its users, as well as the passwords that a user might reuse in a professional setting, making a breach very valuable to someone wishing to conduct password reuse attacks. At the time, LinkedIn used the Secure Hash Algorithm 1, or SHA-1, to protect its passwords during the time of the 2012 attack. The attack vector. The attackers were able to get a hold of the user account information from a LinkedIn employee, and they leveraged this to gain access to a huge amount of the user information. Nikulin first hacked the personal computer of a LinkedIn employee named Nicholas Berry. He then was able to use Berry's username to gain access to LinkedIn's secure VPN. This gave him access to the databases of usernames and passwords. LinkedIn's system did not employ two-factor identification at the time, something they got a lot of public scrutiny for not doing, as it was pretty much the standard at the time for any secure professional system. Now on to decrypting the passwords. The real work of the attack and its consequences came after the passwords were actually stolen. The passwords were not stolen in plaintext form, as they never are stolen in plaintext form. They're always stored in a hashed version. Nikulin essentially had hundreds of millions of hashed passwords using the SHA-1 algorithm. This was a standard developed by the National Security Agency. It's essentially a function that takes an input and produces a 160-bit hashed message digest. In theory, these hashed passwords should have been useless, as hashing is a one-way algorithm. Despite that, there are many ways that a plaintext password can be derived from its hash. At the time, LinkedIn did not incorporate a salted hash. This means that any two passwords will always hash to the same hash string. So, by using rainbow tables of common passwords, Nikulin was able to check to see if the hash of a common password, like LinkedIn, had any matches in the table of hashed passwords. A rainbow table is essentially a list of hashed passwords, millions, potentially billions long, linked to its plain text password. As it turns out, LinkedIn's lackadaisical password policies produced an alarming amount of overly simple passwords. For example, the password LinkedIn was found 172,523 times. The 50 most easily guessed passwords made up 2.2 million of the 117 million stolen passwords. So, what were the consequences of the attack? The primary consequence was that LinkedIn's users were unable to access their accounts, and many received emails or notifications urging them to change their passwords. The secondary response was that the attack was so high profile and it involved so many different user accounts that it is quite probable that the attack reduced people's trust in internet security. This is made especially so by the fact that LinkedIn used inadequate password security and failed to utilize dual-factor identification. The tertiary consequence. In response to reduced trust in its services and security, LinkedIn introduced new security measures in a hope to gain back some credibility. So, what was the reaction from LinkedIn? LinkedIn added an salting functionality. Password salting is a way to add an extra few bits of random data to each password before it is hashed. This makes each hash unique, even if the two passwords are the same. It is the standard for any sensitive hash data. As you can see with the images on the right, the plain text strings in light blue, when they're encrypted without the salting, both produce the same hashed value. But when encrypted with 5 bits of random data, they get completely different hashed results. In conclusion, the attack on LinkedIn proved how easy it is to decrypt passwords that have a protocol not up to standard. It is essential that passwords be kept strong and weak passwords are disallowed. It is also essential that salting is used, as a hash algorithm alone is easily defeated. LinkedIn itself learned many lessons from the hack and has fixed many of its security breaches. Since 2012, there have been no major hacks on LinkedIn where usable data was stolen. In 2021, there was a large data scraping attack, but no plain text to password to username pairs were actually found, thanks to LinkedIn's new security protocols. These involve dual-factor identification, the salting of hash values, and requiring users to use more complex and unique passwords. Some questions for the class. What is the significance of adding salting capabilities to a hashing algorithm? And do you think that, since this attack was so highly publicized, it could have reduced the general public's faith in internet security as a whole? Thank you.